We're a group of Gen Xers who became aware of our neurodiversity later in life. Join us as we share stories, interesting topics, and talk to special guests. Welcome to Season 2 of This Is How My Brain Works. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of This Is How My Brain Works. I'm Michael Collins, joined by Krista, Gano, and Sarah Hines. Jason Rudofsky is on assignment, so it'll be the three of us today. And as always, we do some chatting before we hit record. And I've done talk therapy for years, with my current therapist for probably 2.5 years or so, but done other kind of forms of it. And then there's also like the fun personality profiles and all kinds of whether it's like what type are you, or there's also like the highly sensitive profile and all this stuff. But like along the way, I've heard a term multiple times, and it's interesting how certain dynamics, relationship dynamics, can fall when it's not operating with integrity and with co-regulation, and just where everything's just kind of clicking and everything's good. It can kind of fall in this area where they call the drama triangle. And the drama triangle there's different ways certain people will classify these different roles in the triangle. This one that we're gonna call it hero, villain, and victim for today. And so hero, just briefly, seeks temporary relief. They could be someone who, hey, let me take over. It'll be okay. I can help. They want to step in and kind of save the day, or be the person who makes the problem go away. The villain blames self or others. It's my fault, or you're wrong, or who's to blame. It can be kind of someone who is more, the blamey, the person that's the persecutor is another word. And then there's the victim, is at the effect of. So I don't have enough time. There's nothing I can do. It's too hard. And kind of looking for ways where they can not accept or be accountable, or they can kind of have a reason, like the locus of control is outside of them. It's something's happening to them. So with that, let's begin. Drama triangle, go. No, and we are in a triangle here.
So, first question I have is that, are we saying that in this drama triangle that there are different people at different times that represent those sort of three corners of the triangle? Or are we saying that we can even be all three of those for ourselves? Because
Yeah.
do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that's a great question. I mean, I think just within ourselves, we can kind of, depending on what narratives you've created over time for yourself, or coping mechanisms, I think you can kind of even enter into that drama triangle within yourself, as far as like, God, I'm so stupid. Why did I do that again? Or like, it can be, I think, something like that, or toxic positivity. Maybe it's like, it's all good. We're good. We're good. Um, um, so that
But
is
in
interesting,
particular, we're
Krista.
talking about more relationships, like
This is more, yeah, where I
yeah.
was coming from was more relational, and I think once you kind of understand what it is and the different roles, and if you are like, something's not right here, and you can maybe consider, are we in this triangle? And um, because like most of the time, I mean, I don't think anything good comes of it when you're in it. Like, I don't think you come to really like um, positive types of solutions where all parties are feeling validated and good about it, you know. Um, and so in therapy sessions, it'll be talking about like, were you in a certain role within that drama triangle, and um, where it's just not gonna end well, or it's gonna perpetuate a dynamic that is not healthy.
Do you have to have three people?
No, no, no. You can it can be two people. Like you could. I mean, I think a
Wow.
common one is very much like someone's the victim and someone's the villain. Someone's like, because of you, I spilled my coffee, even though they might not have even been in the room. Or it's like, you know, it, or the hero could be
Mm,
like the
I
people
know. I do because
pleaser.
I can tell you that there, and my mother did it too. Sorry, mom, if you're listening. But there are times where if I'm really overwhelmed and I get dysregulated, I'm in that spot of just not being my best self, where I think I do hero victim at the same time. Fine, I'll do it. No, it's fine. I will
Right.
do it. I mean, I do everything around here, but I will
Martyr.
go ahead and do it.
It's the
Yeah.
martyr.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but
The
it's also
martyr.
while you're fixing the
Ooh, so we
situation.
could make like a Venn diagram of hero with our triangle, and then in between there's other things, right?
Yeah. No, because I
Yeah.
think I definitely have been guilty
The
of
martyr is hero
getting,
victim.
yeah.
What if
That's
it's
that's
all
a
three?
great
What if
call.
you're all three at the same time to yourself?
I don't know.
Dr. Evil?
Then
I don't know.
you go get some
Well,
medication. No, I don't know.
the thing that's so interesting is I was telling you guys yesterday I was at a leadership thing where I was coaching, and the amount of and so when you're coaching and people sort of set up a scenario that they want to work with, because we do a very particular kind of coaching that allows people to do what we call real play. So they set up a scenario and they get to have a difficult conversation with a very well trained improv actor, actually, and then we're able to sort of pull it out and try new things and use it as this little conversation lab. And um and it was really interesting to me, this group, because there was we had to do a lot of work when we are setting up the scenario. I'd say, well, what is your goal? And they'd say, my goal is that they stop being a victim. And it's like, well, hold on. Our goal cannot be what the other person is going to do. Our goal has to be where we sit in the conversation and how we show up.
Interesting.
But it was really interesting. So when you were talking about the this triangle, I was like, oh, that would have been really useful for me yesterday to really set that up as sort of as well, because there was a lot of that. There was a lot of, I just want the other person to do something different. And it's like, I can't coach. I'm not coaching the other person right now. I'm coaching you. We have to talk about how you're showing up. And it would be repeated, like with this group in particular. It would be repeated. It would be like, oh, I'd go, no, we've got to, what about you? And they'd go, well, I mean, I guess I could. I mean, if they would just say, if I could just get them to say, can I just get them to ask me for feedback so I can tell them what's wrong? And
It's
it's
like a
like, yeah.
neurotypical, you know,
So it was really,
neurodiverse
yeah, it
conflict.
was such an interesting thing, and to think about where a lot of them were, I think, sitting in that. Um,
I think in
Sure.
this, you know, the self-awareness piece and the taking ownership of your shit piece of this is, it can take a while and it can be humbling and it can be not fun to accept some things. Like with ADHD, for example, for me, it would be, getting defensive. Um, there's definitely defensiveness. If I felt like someone was judging me or criticizing me, that reaction, passive
mhm.
aggressiveness, defensiveness. And so I could say, well, if this person would just be appreciative of what I'm doing, then I won't get defensive. So, but to your point, Krista, I have to say, like, hey, you know what? But I still did get defensive, and I need to own
Right,
that, and I need to know
right.
where that comes from in me. I have to figure out where that comes from. So there's kind
You're
of that
using
that
a lot
inner
of
work.
words, but I want to know how, Michael.
What's that?
How do you not be defensive, or how do you like, I don't know, what's the hack? I want a hack.
Don't you think I think the hack is often over time, it's about reflection because and that's one of the reasons why, I mean, a long time ago when I started coaching, it's one of the things that we do in my household a lot. And I know, Sarah, you think you do the same thing, which is what's your piece in it? So when my kids would come up, and I think that what the hard piece about this is that there were often times where especially my youngest, would come and share something that he felt like he was victimized in. And I would say, what's your piece in it? And there were times that he would go, I just want you on my side. And I would say, I am on your side by having you walk through this and problem solve it in a way that is more sound. So, but he didn't, he wanted me just to come down and hang out in his victimhood with him. But I mean, I think that's the question all the time is like, what was your piece of it? And can we take the moment to reflect? And as you start to do that for yourself, or, I think that's where some of that change comes. And it starts, I think, with that little voice inside your head when you're being a shit that says, why are you being a shit right now? You should stop being a shit. You're not a victim right now. Why are you acting like one? And then I think depending on how dysregulated or depleted you are, that you make the decision to either like take it, just keep going with it, or find a way out. But I think the hack is on any sort of self-awareness is being willing and creating the space to reflect and to try to make different connections and notice different things, and over time make different choices.
Yeah. So, and Sarah, we think of like, well, what's the hack? What's the quick way to get around this?
I'm glad you picked up on my ADHD question.
Yeah. The hack really, I mean, Krista's, another way I've heard it phrased is the power of the pause. If you are able to figure out how to incorporate a breath or a pause in between, before you react, which initially can be extremely difficult. So it does take time. That is the hack, and it can work immediately, but it takes a lot of practice.
I heard a great hack for that just today on TikTok, and I'm so sorry, I'm not going to remember who it was, but she said, I might be able to, I think I may have saved it, but she said it was about being in a performance evaluation at work and getting your heart rate all up and getting stressed. And she said, here's a way to manage that situation, but I think it goes much beyond that, she said, if you have enough courage to say, or enough vulnerability to say, this is hitting me really hard right now. Can I take a breath? And then in that breath, while you're taking a moment, breathe in and out and say to yourself 3 times, I am brave enough to hear the feedback, or I am brave enough to explore this further. I am brave enough to have this conversation. And if you can do that and then come back in, that's a hack. Now, I haven't tried it. I just saw it today, but I was like, oh my gosh, I think that's a really interesting tip.
I have one too now that you said that, and I learned it. I think you guys can correct me if it was actually Lowell, because it seems like something he would say, but I believe it was a judge at the whoop whoop, shout out to the Colorado high school mock trial competition that was held at the Denver County Courts. And one of the judges, and I'm going to also forget his name, but I have it written down and I can look it up. He said, it's like that moment, sports analogy. When you go to the free throw line, what's your routine before you take that first shot? Is it, I do 3 bounces, breathe, and then shoot? And he basically said that is, you can reset yourself every single time. And if you're not a basketball player, maybe it's a different sport and or thing that you do that is a physical thing, I think, that you're doing a physical thing that you can translate into conversation and dialogue.
Well, one of the things I think that is the dark side of technology is that we have come to expect one of them is that we have come to expect instant reaction, instant gratification. I was watching Heather Cox Richardson have, and I've seen it before, but it came back up again, having her final interview with Anthony Blinken. right before, like in December, right before everything was shifting, and or January anyway. And he said, he's been in the State Department for 30 years at that point, before he was our Secretary of State. And he was saying that it was one of the things that was the worst part of what was happening right now is it used to be in the old days, you'd open up your newspaper, you read through, you'd have a reaction, you had time to calm down. But
Yeah.
now, it was like three news channels that you were managing those people. And now with this constant, like, I have to be fastest, rightest, bestest, most outraged, most, all of this stuff, that it's really changed diplomacy for the worse. And I think that we can use that as when we're even thinking about how we interact with one another all of the time. That this, the fact that someone can text you at 8 in the morning and rile you up, and you feel like you got to get right back to them, or the fact that you get an email that you perceive as being loaded with tone, even though you might be the one who's having the bad day putting the tone on that email, or whatever it is. Like, we have this feeling that we can't pause anymore. So that when you're talking, Michael, about the power of the pause, I mean, when I coach individuals, I'm constantly saying that. It's like, is there room to take a breath? Can we schedule that
Wow.
appointment for tomorrow? Can we all just have a moment to, like, think before we're just tromping through? Like, where is the pressure for this instant
Mhm.
reaction? Um, we all know we're better if we have a moment to let our brains wrap themselves around the problem.
Well, that's the whole, remember, there's that old phrase, we're going to sleep on it.
Hmm.
We'll get back to you tomorrow because we're going to sleep on it.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Bring it back into fashion. Hashtag
right.
sleep on it.
I think that's very interesting how you kind of talk about the immediateness of technology and the answers that we get and what we can access, and so then we're putting some sort of expectation on ourselves to be able to, like, respond in that way. One of the first sessions I went into, it was just like, we're going to try to, like, increase your window of emotional tolerance, like, where, just stay in this window. So I think as we're talking about this, I think, in hacks and all that type of thing, for me, it's important to communicate. The objective is to not be like, to not ever rise or, get too high or get too low, low with just your emotion. I mean, we're emotional beings, and so we're going to be kind of going on this thing all day. It's like a fluid thing. And it's just, can you stay within that space? Can you these are hacks to not get dysregulated, because once you get dysregulated and you go into your, sympathetic amygdala, all that kind of stuff, now you're in fight flight,
But there's
and
also
you're gonna
hacks,
Demon
even
mode.
if you get that way, because there's also hacks like that's why I call it the, like, the unsent. There's the unsent email. The idea, if you are heated and you need to, like, get it out, and you
yeah.
need to write the thing on a Word document so it doesn't accidentally get sent somewhere, and then come back tomorrow and read. Often, if it's a response to another email,
Oh
read the
man.
email again and then your response. But I mean, I always, like, my self-talk is so often, just because they asked for it doesn't mean they get to have an answer right now. An answer within 24 to 48 hours is completely appropriate. It is okay to pause. Like, I am constantly saying that to myself. And so many times, I'm so grateful I did that, because I call it user error, that I'll go back and in my mind, I'll have skipped three words that were really crucial in a sentence, that whatever it was sounded like it was being really shitty. And then now when I go back and read, I'm like, oh, they didn't even say that at all. Right? Like, we have to take, and I think, I mean, we have to take responsibility for that piece of what we do in those puzzles. But I think the smartest thing to do is to also, like, not send it out so that you have to take responsibility publicly. You can take responsibility privately on those things.
Yeah.
Totally.
I'm going to
No,
take
that's
responsibility right now and let you know I forgot to start the timer, and I also didn't look at what time we started. So fun times.
Here, let me help you. Um,
Fun times.
let me help you
I
with
think
that.
I roughly know.
Okay, good. Oh,
Two,
thanks, Sarah.
like 2:15,
I
No,
maybe
was
a little
about
after
counting on
that, please.
Sarah. I was
A little
counting on.
after that, Michael.
20 minutes
Um,
in. Okay.
yeah, so all of this made me think of two things. First, oh no, I'll start with the second thing, which was the first thing, because I'm ADHD. When you were giving your, sorry, I'm very slow today. When you were giving your intro, Michael, I was so freaking ADHD that when you said personality profile, I needed to
Yeah.
pick up my phone and
Yeah.
do one right then. And it was actually, I know, and I was like, I can't do a personality profile in the middle of
Impulsive. What? This personality profile says I'm impulsive. Can you believe that?
So anyway, not that I've never done like 20 million of them. It was very, I had to write it down. It made me laugh so hard at myself.
It is
So
hard to resist.
I called it the dopamine desire to grab my phone. Anyway,
Oh,
so
side. Can I
I
do a
have a
quick
second point, but
sidebar?
I had wrote it
Oh,
down.
go ahead. I'm
No,
sorry. You need to finish your thing. Go ahead.
no, I wrote it down. You can.
No, do it.
All right. So the other thing, when you were talking about, just hitting pause, when we were talking about that, it made me think of this recent study that shows that there's a pruning of the female brain at menopause. And have we talked about this already?
I'm not sure.
You
I
guys
hate
had
the
an
word
entire
prune. I don't.
episode about that.
I hate the term pruning of the brain.
No, you'll like it because I'm going to refrain. Just
Okay, good.
stay with my
Prune
roller
juice
coaster.
on the brain?
No, shush, don't diarrhea this. Um, sorry. You're not supposed to laugh at your own jokes. I know. Anyway, there's pruning that happens, I know, two other times, right? In like 3 to 4 years old, and then again at right after adolescence. So like from your brain but your brain grows and then it prunes. So I wonder, one, does our brain grow right before menopause somehow? But second, they talk about the pruning in this study and they say that, or what I was reading, the headline, and it's like it leads to the wisdom that women have. That the older, that like we're the only species that goes through not living long after we can bear children. So like, why is that happen? Anyway, so the pruning, one of the things that everybody our age, even old men too, say is, oh my gosh, they walk in a room and you forget why you're in there. And I've decided to lean into this. And it is, in fact, because I'm so wise, whatever it was not that important. And what this gets back to the pause is in those moments, we really should just let it go. Like the anger moments, the forgetful moments, all of those things, because forgetting to me is a form of dysregulation. It is, I was doing too much, or it was not right for me as an organism in that moment. And
Well, except that I don't want to walk back upstairs and then back down because I realized I needed the tomato paste from the pantry. So I do go downstairs and I go, what was it? Come on, get it together. What was it? We came all the way down here.
I have a spin for that that's annoying
Maybe
too. So I'll just
Close the loop. You need to close the loop.
so that my ass will be a little smaller because I did the stairs.
the walking. Your brain secretly knows you needed more exercise, and that.
Yeah, I know.
I
I've thought
swear to
about
God,
that
I
too.
can psychobabble myself into the happiest
But
place.
so here's the thing too about that I'll say about the pause and what I was saying earlier about what I think about technology and everything is I do
And
think
then we'll circle back to my.
yes, is I do think that we are because well Michael might be the one who has to close this out. Is I do think that the Gen X because we have to have our Gen X moment of the day that the Gen X group and elder millennials are uniquely positioned to help people with some of this discernment around communication and where they're being because we do remember a time we were raised in a time that that things did not have to be so instant. And I think there's wisdom in that. And that I think in the year of our Lord 2025, it is incredibly important to roll out that wisdom and discernment as we're stepping through some of the hardest times probably of our lives in terms of what's happening geopolitically and just how people are feeling and all anyway. So I think
All the things.
all the things. So I think without bringing them up, I think that we are uniquely suited to this time period.
Yeah.
I don't know the chance to lead.
No, that is interesting. This is veering off of the triangle
A little bit.
thing, but can you notice my phone? Like, what do you notice? Let's see here.
Gray.
What are you trying to show? What's happening?
What do you notice? Is it
Gray.
So it's
gray?
black and white or gray.
So I went in, and it takes many steps to do this, but in settings you can go in and do your whole phone grayscale. And it's fascinating just for an experiment what happens, because you realize how much dopamine just comes from the colors alone. The colors are so vibrant on the phone. We have things color coded. The apps are coded in a way that kind of like it's almost a hypnotizing thing, and it's just this dopamine thing. I've had it on grayscale for about a week, and granted, I will still grab it and read news, and I'll grab it and look at weather. I mean, I'm still grabbing for the phone, but I'm able to then say like, okay, I have the information I needed. Now I can put it down, rather than like I'm being seduced into staying on this thing longer and checking other things out because it is so vibrant and the dopamine we're getting feels so good. It's more like data versus like a story,
Well, it's more like, a Word document versus a reel.
It's more data
Nobody can hang out in a Word document that long.
I mean, there are things like, going through and finding a picture or stuff or watching something. I mean, yeah, it does disrupt things like that where you want to have a fuller experience, but for the most part, with just having it all great, I'm noticing it doesn't have as much of a grip on me. It's just been a fascinating
having a physical reaction of no fucking way to that. Just so you know, my brain is like, nope, not doing that.
I don't like that.
I don't like that. I want my colors and my dopamine thing.
And don't tell me what to do.
And don't tell me what to do.
It's just that's the grip that it has. These programmers are like, how long can we get them to stay engaged?
A long, long time.
For me, from an auditory standpoint, a long time. Yeah, that's for sure.
The last thing I want to touch on, and I know, we're wrapping down.
No, I was saying we should probably also just come back to
differentiation. Well, what I was going to say is, I feel like I didn't get a great grasp in this version of the conversation of what differentiation is as a means of avoiding the triangle, whether it's the hero, villain, victim triangle or other permutations, variations of that. So Michael, do you want to?
I think the idea is the differentiation of self rather than being in this triangle of thing. And so one definition is the ability to maintain a distinct identity and separate one's thoughts, feelings, and needs from those of others. So if you're able to do that differentiation, you're able to kind of like maybe understand your intent or your boundaries or your needs a little bit better. They don't get conflated with other things. So it involves establishing boundaries, recognizing one's own individuality in those relationships. And that doesn't mean being selfish. It just means like, it just means like not holding on to yourself there, your agency, and not going into this, some other terminology, persecutor, rescuer, victim. You're not in this, it's all your fault. You can't do anything right. The rescuer, let me help you. You can't do it on your own. Let me, to help So like persecutors feel superior. Um, Rescuers again feel superior. Might have a superior type of feeling that they get.
Mm.
And then victims, it's like disparages oneself, or I can't do it on my own, poor me, and then avoids the responsibilities.
Would this also include weaponized incompetence? Would the victim be that person?
Weaponized incompetence. I think that's a topic for another
Here's
day. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
that's a big topic. But I think that when I hear all of this stuff, like all of this stuff, I often wonder how much we're sort of beating the humanity out of ourselves by trying to know so much about ourselves. And
Well,
I think there's a balance there. I'm not saying, we should know ourselves, but it we are complex, beautiful humans.
I think it's like where does it
Finding the spot. Yeah.
but where does it go into like a toxic space? And it's really what's the intent behind it. I
Sure.
think it is good to know yourself, have a self-awareness, and you know, if you're validating someone else or respecting someone else in that relationship, I think it goes into building more positive relationships. I hear what you're saying as far as
Well, it's
like,
just interesting because like one of the things that we deal with this in sort of ministry is that uh, there's this idea of being like the peacemakers. Like we are the peacemakers when we are in a faith space. But artists can't always be peacemakers. Like we have to sometimes say no, or we have to push for something more. It's like there's passion involved. And so when we're sometimes when we're and listen, I coach this stuff. I get it. I see it. But I also think that there's real beauty in the messiness of humanity. And that
Mhm.
and I don't want us to not have grace for ourselves because
Yeah,
we were messy. And that's one of the things I talk about all of the time when I coach is like communication is messy and it's okay. It's how we clean it up, how we relate, how we build community, how we build trust, how we do all of these other things. It's not in trying to trying to make everything non-messy or it's about
yeah,
being able to have trust so that when it gets messy, it's okay. And so that's I think sometimes when we're in these spaces of trying to figure out so much about where we are, that we also maybe don't give ourselves just some grace to be. And obviously I don't mean like hurting people or not having good boundaries for yourself. I mean there's a middle spot in there too, but
no, I think that I like a lot of this stuff. I feel like I've heard, I've looked at so many different models like this as far as attachment styles, love languages, this, and I think hanging your hat on just one of those things, um I'm not really sure about that. I think to your point, Krista, I think this is just part of what I think is just a good to kind of have as information and some self-awareness. But I mean,
that's what I
self-compassion.
love that you said about intent, though, Michael, because I mean, I'll do that with, I used to talk to my kids about intent all the time because my oldest, my autistic oldest, used to say to me, when am I allowed to cuss? I would like a date. I would like a rule. And, and one of the things I would like to say is, I told him, it's like you can do that when you understand a few things. One, where it's appropriate and inappropriate to do that. But secondly, when you understand the intent because it is hard to call someone a fucking idiot with good intent. So if your intent is poor, you can't do that one. You have
Yeah,
to think about intent, right? Like you have to understand what the intent is. And so
that's
we
good.
talked a lot about intent, about in communication and what our intent is when we start. And if your intent is just to say a bad word, then maybe you're going to pick one that doesn't denigrate someone else because there's no way that there can be good intent there.
Mhm,
Right.
mhm.
Yeah,
So, so I do
that's
think intent
fascinating.
is really important.
Yeah. And just to add on to what you also kind of brought up was the self-compassion piece. I mean, that's a huge thing. just is separate from anything we've talked about, like whether it's within this drama triangle or like how we like kick ourselves or whatever. The self-compassion as we're learning these new hacks and trying to integrate these new hacks, or just having patience and self-compassion.
Yeah. So I'm going to do the reminder, my favorite example. Well, most people learn to walk or have observed somebody learning to walk. And learning to walk looks like 90% failure for a good long while. And so self-compassion is critical as we're adults and we sort of criticize ourselves or have this kind of ego that looks in on our new efforts. And all of our new efforts need to be protected like little green shoots in the ground and given a chance to grow and prosper. And they do. I don't know a person who doesn't benefit or improve with positive reinforcement as opposed to negative reinforcement. And that positive reinforcement starts with how we talk to ourselves.
Yeah. Love it. That's good.
That's a great way to wrap it up, Sarah Hines.
I like that.
Totally tried there, y'all.
Now you have to take us out.
All right. So the drama triangle, explore it, check it out. If you resemble some of it, that's some information for you. But I think a lot of what we're saying today is like, that self-awareness piece, own it, but then have that self-compassion, and it just takes time to create new habits. Hacks are great and are helpful, but you got to have some patience as you're kind of working your way along your personal journey. So we have enjoyed another episode of This Is How My Brain Works. For Krista, Sarah, I'm Michael. Jason will get you on the next one, and have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. Please like and share and subscribe and all that good stuff, and we'll see you on the next one. If you like this episode of This Is How My Brain Works, please like, subscribe, and share. If you'd like more info on the hosts, guests, and topics, check out the show notes. Thanks for listening.